Mom, just wait.
No time to wait. Very busy.
Across the multiverse, I've seen thousands of Evelyns. If you can imagine it, somewhere out there, it exists.
The universe is bigger than you realize.
Do you think this is funny?
There's no going back.
Of all the places I could be, I just want to be here with you.
Welcome back to the Cinema Club podcast. My name is Christopher Amick, and I will be your host for today's episode. The Cinema Club is like a book club, but for movies, and today I am joined by both Adam and John, who independently reached out to me and shared that they would love to be covering today's film, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. So I am so happy to be diving into this film with the both of you today. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a 2022 American comedy drama film. However, the film incorporates elements from a number of genres and film mediums, including surreal comedy, science fiction, fantasy, martial arts, immigrant narrative films, and animation. Michelle Yeoh stars as Evelyn Quan Wang, a Chinese American immigrant who, while audited by the IRS, discovers that she must connect with parallel universe versions of herself to prevent a powerful being from destroying the multiverse. Everything Everywhere All at Once began a limited theatrical release in the United States on March 25th of 2022, before a wide release by A24 on April 8th. The film grossed over $141 million worldwide, becoming A24's highest-grossing film. It garnered widespread critical acclaim, gained a large cult following, and was a success at the 95th Academy Awards, winning a leading 7 awards out of 11 nominations, including Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Film Editing. It also won 2 Golden Globe Awards, 5 Critics' Choice Awards, a BAFTA Award, a record 4 SAG Awards, a record 7 Independent Spirit Awards, and swept the 4 major Guild Awards with 266 awards out of 405 nominations. Everything Everywhere All at Once is currently estimated to be the most awarded film of all time, and Rotten Tomatoes has an audience score of 86% and a critics rating of 94%. With all that being said, I will roll the intro music and see you on the other side with Adam and John to dive into Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm here tonight with John Rody and Adam Cheatham, diving into Everything Everywhere All at Once. And all three of us are pretty excited to get started here, but just wanted to first and foremost welcome both of you back to the Cinema Club. You both have been, fairly regular co-hosts on the show for the last 6 months or so as we've been closing out 2023. So it's always really exciting for me when I get to introduce people that I've been talking with movies about with one another.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on again, Chris.
Of course.
Happy to talk about this movie. It's real good.
It is. And yeah, let's just go ahead and dive right into Everything Everywhere All at Once. So, our main character, Evelyn Quang Wang, is a middle aged Chinese American immigrant who runs a laundromat with her husband, Waymond. 2 decades earlier, they eloped to the United States and had a daughter, Joy. In the present day, the laundromat is being audited by the IRS. Waymond is trying to serve Evelyn divorce papers in an attempt to get her attention so they can talk about their marriage. Evelyn's stern and demanding father, referred to as Gong, Cantonese for grandfather, is with them as well as they plan a Chinese New Year party. Meanwhile, Joy is dealing with depression and has a strained relationship with her mother, which is partially because of Evelyn's reluctance to accept Joy's non Chinese girlfriend, Becky. I really love that we get thrown into this movie instantly. And there's a lot obviously going on.
I was gonna say, I have so much to say. Big picture thing to say is the pacing of this movie. It works, but it's a little chaotic and it's fast. There's so much that's happening. There's very little moments of like downtime. I feel like the movie is just always going. And I feel like you feel that in the beginning, just getting to know these characters and understanding where they're coming from. And just between the three generations, you can already see conflicts brewing. The one thing I will say, if I remember correctly, it's not stated why Waymond wanted the divorce at the very beginning, right?
Yeah, that comes in later where he talks about, I don't remember how far into it, but it's not right at the beginning.
We see the divorce papers, but we don't understand his reasoning until later, which I think something that the movie does really well is baiting and switching. You have this expectation. This is going a little bit further, but when you see the divorce thing, your expectation is, oh, he wants a divorce. But the reality is, no, he just wants to have a conversation about the relationship and he's trying to get her attention, right? I just love that little bait and switch there where you think it's the termination of a relationship where in reality, he's just trying to mend their relationship. But that's a little further ahead. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's something that honestly, the very first time I watched the film, like you said, there's a lot going on. And it's
Mhm.
something where I caught that he was having divorce papers, obviously, but I didn't really catch the reasoning behind why he had those so much as I did the second time I watched the film actually this week. So good point to bring up there, Adam, for sure.
Yeah, I like how you feel within the first part of the movie pretty quickly. Here's the motivation for the characters, other than Joju Jabaka. I'm not saying that right, but
Jobu Tapaki.
thank you. I tried writing it out.
No, it's okay. The main character can't say it throughout the first half of the movie anyway.
Yeah. So I can relate that one pretty hard there. But I love how Evelyn and Waymond and Joy, you really get that she's just feeling very overwhelmed with all her responsibilities, the disappointments of living a fairly mundane life. And you feel her husband just desperate to connect with her and feeling the frustration of being in a fairly disconnected marriage. And you feel the daughter desperate for parental approval and not getting it, and the frustration. You really just feel though no one's really the villain out of those three, but they're all just not
Yeah.
getting what they need from each other.
Yeah. I feel like nihilism is actually the real antagonist of the film.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's a very nihilistic film throughout a lot of it.
That's a really good point because there's so many things even introduced here in the first 5 minutes that obviously are important to characters, right? Even Joy's strained relationship with her mother, because it's important for her to be recognized in her sexuality, but then also recognized in her 3-year-long relationship with her girlfriend Becky and to recognize them. So yeah, it's definitely something that is a very heavy theme, if not the theme of Everything Everywhere All at Once. And something that I was trying to figure out as well, and maybe you guys caught it, but is Evelyn's father visiting them for the party, or is he like a permanent resident?
Later in the movie, there's like a flashback to during one of her flashbacks. She gets a phone call saying that her father's had a stroke or some sort of medical emergency and he needs long-term care. And so he moves in with them.
Okay, perfect. That's what I had originally thought. And then when I was looking up like synopsis and stuff like that for the film, I was getting mixed messages. So I was like, oh, I should probably check in. But perfect. That also tracks with my understanding as well, John. Thank you.
I don't think it's clear how long ago it had happened that you moved in, though. So it might still be
Yeah.
relatively recently.
Oh, sure.
I've watched it like 4 times now. The first time I watched it, I definitely just thought it was a visit. And it wasn't until other viewings where I actually saw the details to realize, oh no, he's actually moved in.
Like he's living with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I would guess it's pretty recent, though, because I think there's at one point, like he's introduced to Becky for the first time. And it seems if she's been with Joy for a while, it seems like she probably goes over to their house fairly often. So he probably has pretty recently moved in with them.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Let me jump into the next section. This is where things really start to get going in
Yeah.
the film. So at a tense meeting with IRS Inspector, is it Deidre?
I think it's Jamie Lee Curtis, actually.
Jamie Lee Curtis's character. Wayman's body is taken over by Alpha Waymans, a version of Waymans from the Alphaverse. Alpha Wayman explains to Evelyn that many parallel universes exist because every life choice creates a new alternative universe. In the Alphaverse, the late Alpha Evelyn developed verse jumping technology, which enables people to access the skills, memories, and bodies of their parallel selves by performing bizarre actions that are statistically unlikely. The multiverse is threatened by Jobu Tupaki, aka Alpha Joy, whose mind was splintered after Alpha Evelyn pushed her to verse jump beyond her endurance. Jobu experiences all universe at once and can verse jump and manipulate matter at will. She has created a black hole called Everything Bagel, topped with everything, which appears as a torrid singularity that could destroy the multiverse.
A lot happens in that time frame.
I got to say that I feel like Ki Hoi Kwan should do exposition for every movie ever, though, because he's so good at exposition dumps. Because there's a lot of movies where that's where the movie kind of falls a little flat, is when they're
Yeah.
so exposition heavy. But he delivers it so earnestly, and this is super important, that I think it works really well in this. And it was also one of the things I really liked about Loki is how he explained how the multiverse jumping or time slipping, I think is what it's called in that, worked. But he's so good at that. Like he should do every sci-fi movie, be the exposition guy.
Get typecast as the exposition guy.
Yeah.
So this whole section, I think is a prime example, like why I love the movie so much. Because when someone asks, hey, what genre of movie is Everything Everywhere All at Once? There's no actual pinpoint answer you can say and feel comfortable with. Technically, it's like a science fiction movie, right? But if you just call it a science fiction movie, I feel like you lose a lot. In this section, you get comedy, you get martial arts scenes that are awesome. You obviously get the science fiction element with the exposition explaining what this movie is going to be about or the mechanisms used in this movie to move the characters along. And then you have a family drama. And there's even like a small, like 2 or 3 minute section where it's like a horror film. There's like a brief moment where Evelyn's in another universe and it feels like a zombie movie. And it's so short. And I just really appreciate the ability to interweave like all of these genres into a movie and not feel forced at the same time.
It's everything.
Yeah, it is everything. But I know one of the scenes that always catches my attention, even though it's a very small scene, is when they're all walking into the IRS office and Wayman sees the couple that are older and they're being affectionate with one another. And we instantly catch a glimpse of what he's missing and yearning for in his relationship with Evelyn. And I think that's something that everyone sometimes does struggle with in relationships is, oh, like, how do we keep it intimate? How do we keep it special? How do we keep that love burning? And so, yeah, there's so many of those themes just woven into a quick 10-second shot like that, that really, again, speak to the fact that the film just touches on so many different aspects that really showcase why someone should maybe not have a nihilistic viewpoint, or at least understand where somebody is coming from when they are trying to share what's important to them.
I think this movie just has a great response to, I guess, the nihilistic mindset. I did a little bit of research, and from my understanding, Joy is supposed to represent like a Gen Z. Unbeknownst to me, apparently there's a lot of Gen Zers with a nihilistic outlook on life, and I just find that interesting. I feel like for the most part, Joy is supposed to represent kind of Gen Z and that view on life, and I think the movie has a really nice response.
And I think it's interesting with that because I think the reason why it's more common with Gen Z than previous generations, because nihilism's been around for like
Oh yeah,
100 years or more probably even. But I think it's because they have such a huge information overload because of just incredible access like no other generation has had. So just everything going on in the world. And I think when you have so much information from all these different places, all these conflicting views and ideas, and from even just what is the actual information, like you start to disassociate to some extent. And I don't know,
yeah.
it's just, I feel like it really does show like how it happens.
And
And that's what happens with Joy.
I feel like the very thing you just described was symbolized by the everything bagel. Dang, this movie deep.
That's a great take for sure. Because like you guys are saying, it really is showcasing Joy and also how she arrived at that viewpoint, importantly. So Evelyn is given verse jumping technology to fight Jabu's minions, who converge on the IRS building. She discovers other universes in which she made different choices and flourished, such as becoming a kung fu master, film star. She also learns of Waymond's plans with the divorce papers. Alpha Waymond believes that Evelyn, as the greatest failure of all Evelyns in the multiverse, has the untapped potential to defeat Jobu. Gong is taken over by Alpha Gong, who instructs Evelyn to kill Joy to stop Jobu from using her to enter Evelyn's universe. Evelyn refuses and decides to face Jobu by gaining powers throughout repeated verse jumping. Alpha Gong, convinced that Evelyn's mind has been compromised, like Jobu's, sends soldiers after Evelyn. While they fight, Jobu locates and kills Alpha Waymond in the Alphaverse as Jobu confronts Evelyn in her universe. Evelyn's mind splinters and she collapses.
Okay, so this is just a small little thing, but I remember in this section, I don't know why I thought it was so funny because it's immature. But first off, I'll just say like the martial arts scenes are like super well done and creative with the element of having what was it called? The
First jump.
verse jump. Like obviously like scenes off. I actually get squeamish thinking about this where he had to do the paper cuts in between the fingers. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. That one physically hurt me. But
Yes.
obviously the funniest one was the one where the bad guys were trying to sit on the IRS award thing that's shaped like a item of sorts.
Not only sit, but dramatically lands.
I
and
was
everything.
dying. I just love at the first part of it, just this huge fight scene, and he's just trying to sit on it, right? And you think we've won, we've done it, and from nowhere, guy runs with a running start, jumps, and I just love how it was done. Oh man, I just thought that was one of the funniest moments of the movie.
Like the way that Evelyn keeps like moving it just out of reach of the one guy.
And then even gets a little bit funnier when like, the second guy suddenly has something stuck in his ass and they're all fighting.
Man, oh yeah, it was an interesting element to the martial arts
Absolutely.
element.
Yeah, there were so many good fight scenes. Like another one I thought was really funny. Like I was just dying today when I was rewatching it. The girl from Parks and Rec. I can't remember her name. But anyway, when she's fighting with her little poodle or whatever, she's
yeah.
throwing it on the leash. And that was just so funny. I think it's stuck in the fridge. Even the first fight scene with Alpha Waymond.
Oh,
where
yeah.
with fighting with his fanny pack and then filling it with gravel from the fish tank and stuff. It was good.
Yeah, no, all the martial arts scenes were super well done. Fun fact, I just thought about it since we're talking about martial arts. Do you know originally when they were hammering this movie out, who they had playing the protagonist. It's a trick question
No.
because the original protagonist was supposed to be a guy, and it was for Jackie Chan initially.
No way.
Yeah. But as they got through the process, they eventually decided they wanted the protagonist to be the wife, actually. They didn't actually get a chance to get Jackie Chan in or anything. But I just thought that was interesting. Initially, when they had this idea, they thought Jackie Chan would be a good protagonist for it. I feel like it'd be a completely different movie.
Yeah, no, I think it would.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know that the daughter, Joy, was originally supposed to be Aqua.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah,
I
and
didn't know
first
that.
she decided to take a different role and then recommended, I don't remember what the name of the actress is, but she was friends with this actress and recommended her and they decided to go with her.
She was perfect. So glad that happened.
Oh yeah. It was super well cast. You could have switched some of the cast out for other great actors or actresses
Yeah.
and it could have still worked, but I think there definitely would have been something lost with the family dynamic.
definitely. And I was trying not to chuckle out loud too much, Adam, when you were talking about the martial arts in the film, because the scene that just kept coming back to my head is when Joy is fighting and killing those cops with dildos. I'm sorry, it just kept replaying in my head the whole time.
No, I understand.
There's so much ridiculousness. We have the hot dog hands universe briefly
Oh, yeah.
introduced here
Love that
as
universe.
well. Yeah, they just got so
Yeah, the,
creative.
the Ratatouille.
Oh
Oh,
my gosh.
loved how they treat it like it's just a little throwaway joke. And
Yeah.
then it becomes a universe they keep coming back to.
Oh, man. You got the martial arts universe where she's super famous.
Yeah, she has like the pinky muscles that she uses kung fu. Yeah. It's a whole lot of ridiculousness, but it really somehow works really well.
Yeah, I feel like this movie is a great example of how humor done well adds to the emotional depth of the movie. Because the humor never takes away from the scenes or the emotional weight of what's happening between the families or the fate of the multiverse. It just adds this added layer of depth, and I loved it.
100% agree.
And then stuff even gets more bizarre when Evelyn uncontrollably verse jumps alongside Jobu across bizarre and diverse universes. Jobu reveals she does not want to fight at all, but that instead she has been searching for an Evelyn who can see, as she does, that nothing matters, while killing the Evelyns that do not agree with her. She brings Evelyn to the everything bagel, explaining that she wants to use it to allow herself and Evelyn to truly die. Upon looking into the bagel, Evelyn is initially persuaded and behaves truly and nihilistically in her other universes, hurting those around her.
This probably the biggest bait and switch of the whole movie. The everything bagel is built up as this thing that's going to end the multiverse. And I totally bought in. That's what we were fighting. Then when we really get to meet Alpha Joy and see what's going on, you realize actually she's just uber depressed and is wanting to use that to kill herself. And then it's, I don't know, it just makes the movie a lot more heavier because she's no longer the antagonist anymore. Because the movie builds her as the antagonist, and then you realize, oh man, this is really sad, actually. Yeah, it really hit for me when that was revealed.
Yeah, Tupaki's line is, I wasn't looking for you so I could kill you. I was just looking for someone who could see what I see, feel what I feel. Definitely completely changes, at least for me, what's going on in the film.
Yeah, it becomes even more of a family drama and just a story about reconciliation, like this very depressed, overwhelmed daughter with her depressed, overwhelmed mother trying to help her figure it out. And yeah, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but the Waymond is throughout it. He is just this consistently kind, loving person. And you get the feeling that even before the end, where he really turns things around for the family, just even at the beginning, he's the one holding that family together at the very beginning, just by how kind he is and just doing the little things to try to ease the tension for people.
Definitely. Yeah, circling back to it, like Jobu Tupaki, at first, is coming across as callous, cruel, no real tangible motivation behind why she's the villain. really. But then when it's revealed that her character is actually driven by a desire for companionship, again, it just puts a whole different spin on her character and makes it a much more complex and compelling main villain as well. But yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
totally with you there, John, with K. Hugh Kwan. Like, he's just incredible. Makes me cry every time I watch this movie.
So are we past the end of part one technically? Like how the movie divided it? I don't know about you guys, but the way that they structured, they did the part one, part two,
Everything.
part three, everywhere all at once. Yeah. By the time they got to the end of part one, I had forgotten that they had done that near the beginning of the movie the first time I watched it. And so that's an hour and a half in.
It is. Yeah.
That ends. That's the length of a shorter movie. But
Yeah.
with how packed the movie is, it felt longer. So like when the credits start rolling right before they end part one and go to part two, I thought that was the movie. And I was like, oh, that's a dark way to end.
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
remember when I first watched it, I thought that was the end too. And I was like, whoa, this
Yeah.
is a bold movie.
I mean, it would have worked still. I'm glad they did the rest of it. But it would have still worked as it was there, but it really threw me. And then when they had part two, I'm like, whoa, how can this,
Yeah.
what more is there to do with this story? And there was a lot.
I
Apparently.
think this movie does a great job of knowing what the audience expectation is going to be and just playing around with that in so many aspects, from the everything bagel to seeing the divorce papers to putting fake credits at like the 90ish minute mark, long enough for you to forget that there was a part one. I just love how it plays with the expectations and subverts it like a lot, and not
And they
just
act-
for no reason.
Yeah, and who they had as the director of the fake movie was like the actual directors of the movie.
Yeah.
I did want to take a moment and just pause to share that the Cinema Club podcast is 100% supported by you, our listeners. So if you are enjoying the show, and if you are wanting to support the show and continue to help it grow, please consider clicking the support button on our website. You can check that out at podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/the Club. Thank you so much. And now let's return to the episode. Yeah, I wanted to briefly talk about the rock scene, because I believe this happens this
Yeah.
time as well. I don't know how they do it. Every time I watch this rock scene, it makes me really emotional. Like, I cried in the movie theater watching it for the first time. It just came out of left field, really got me. And I think it's a really cool storytelling device just to have the text on screen with some wind blowing, looking at these two rocks.
Yeah, it was just such a moment of relief because it was right after a really intense montage where the mom and daughter are just fighting each other throughout the multiverse, and they're quickly flashing between 2 or 3 second clips of them fighting in this universe before jumping to the next one. And then they just have that pause. It was just so relieving for me. And then it was also
Yes.
so emotional because it was like chance to pause and reflect. But then there's also a little bit of stuff happening with that conversation that's really weighty emotionally. So it's weird, but I think it's my favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah, I think it has one of the best quotes in the whole movie, because Jobu says, every new discovery is just a reminder. And then Evelyn cuts in, we're all small and stupid, which is both sad, thought provoking, yet relatable.
Yeah. I think the movie does a really good job, even though it retorts it at the end. I think it does a really good job of kind of putting out like how someone can get into this nihilistic headspace.
Yeah.
And I think the rock scene is one of the many scenes used to express that way of thinking and how you get there.
No, 100%. Because I think when Evelyn tries to apologize to Joy, she stops her and tells her to simply be a rock.
Just be a rock.
Which I think is getting at the idea that to cut oneself off from problems and emotions, and how that can be a lot easier sometimes for people to be something cold and unmoving in that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's within that same scene that Joy also tells Evelyn that she was hoping her mom could show her a different way. Even though Joy, as Jobu, has become very nihilistic, she created the everything bagel. She's wanting to just be done completely with everything. there's still a little bit of her that's hoping there's something better, that there's a better way of looking at life, of going through it. And even though she hates her mom and or at least is very frustrated with her throughout all these different universes, she's still hoping that she could get that from her mom somehow.
Yeah. Heavy but good stuff. 100%. I just feel like there's so many good moments in the film that even though it really is just literally jumping around so much, they just put together a really cohesive film. I think it takes place during this time too, a little bit, or even prior when the alternative versions of Waymond and Evelyn are talking, and successful, rich Waymond says, I would really have liked to just be doing laundry and taxes with you.
Yeah, that was my favorite line of the movie.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Because I think it's a really good reminder for us that it's about the people in our lives more so
Mhm.
than the money or what we're actually doing day to day. Again, recenters, refocuses on the important things in life. The things do
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, I remember it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago now when I was getting ready to first move out to the West Coast. I was like graduating from college and I was talking to one of my professors. I was really excited. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to the West Coast and here's all the like awesome things in the area and stuff. And he looked at me, that doesn't really matter that much. Do you like the people you're going to be working with? Because all those other things, like that stuff you'll do like once in a while on the weekends. But what really matters is the people you're spending your day to day life with. You have good connection with those people. And that really helped change my perspective on things.
Very true. People either add or, or take away from your daily life.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And I think it's part of the within the story too. She starts to give in a little bit to Joy's nihilistic way of
Yeah.
viewing the world. And she starts to just become really intentionally cruel. And then what helps her start to snap out of it is when Waymond, when she sees him talking to the IRS agent, and he actually is able to buy some extra time for her by being nice to this agent. And she's, oh, maybe he's not just a silly, foolish man who can't take life seriously. Maybe there's actually a reason why he's so silly and nice to everyone.
It reminds her in that moment, at least what I believe, is why she chose to spend her life with him, why she chose to come to America with him and to set up their business together. Yeah, I definitely agree. Let me read off that part quick and then let's dive into it. So, as Evelyn is about to enter the bagel with Jobu, she pauses to listen to Waymond's pleas in her universe for everybody to stop fighting and to instead be kind, even when life does not make sense. Evelyn has an existential epiphany and decides to follow Waymond's absurdist and humanist advice, using her multiverse powers to fight with empathy and bring happiness to those around her. In doing so, she repairs her damage in the other universes and neutralizes Alpha Gong Gong and Jobu's fighters. In her home universe, Evelyn reconciles with Waymond, accepts Joy and Becky's relationship, and tells Gong Gong of it, and talks with Deidre after Waymond convinces Deidre to let them redo their taxes. Jobu decides to enter the bagel alone, while simultaneously, in Evelyn's universe, Joy begs Evelyn to let her go. Evelyn tells Joy that even when nothing makes sense, and even though she could be anywhere in the multiverse, she will always want to be with Joy. Evelyn and the others save Jobu from the bagel, and Evelyn and Joy embrace. Sometime later, with the family's relationships improved, they return to the IRS building to refile their taxes. Evelyn's attention is momentarily drawn to her alternative selves before she grounds herself back in her home universe.
Okay. We reached the climax of the film. I just think this is so wonderful. It's like such a small thing. But as we reach the climax of the film, we have all of these subplots from these other universes also reaching a bit of a climax. And I don't know, I actually thought having them all at the same time enhanced the mainline story climax, from the hot dog finger lovers to saving the raccoon. I just thought that it was a small touch and it didn't take up a lot of screen time, but it was just a nice little touch for that big moment at the end.
Yeah, that fight where she goes and holds Joy back from the everything bagel, and then her dad and Waymond help as well. I love on the stairs as she's fighting through them. She's taking Waymond's advice to fight with kindness. And so
Yeah.
with each of them, she remembers that person in an alternate universe. And she's, oh, that's the thing this person needs. And so I'm going to give it to them. It's a callback to the weird old man who misses his wife's perfume. And she like sprays him with the perfume, or the guy who she like hits his neck. Like, oh, she just killed him. Oh no, she fixed his back. And stuff like that. I was just like, it was like a really nice touch.
Yeah, again, it was something that as a first time viewer, I would never have guessed, even actively watching the film up to that point. And again, I mentioned it, but Ki Hu Kwan's performance in the film, I think, is everyone does a great job, but I really think his
But he was-
performance is incredible.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like even though he's not protagonist, I feel like he's so fundamental to getting the message across of the film, because it's really his words that and his actions that change the course of the protagonist. And he
yeah.
just delivers it so perfectly while also being like a really quirky character. Were you a fan of the visual effects of the film by chance?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
You want to know a fun fact about that? So apparently the filmmakers had a previous film, Swiss Army Man, where they outsourced their visual effects and they hated it. They hated what they did. So for this movie, they got a team of 5 people to do all the visual effects for the entire movie. I just think that's so impressive. 5 people.
And if I remember right, like a lot of the stuff they didn't know how to do, so they just looked up tutorials on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Like, I thought the effects were really good, though. They did some really
If-
interesting things.
Would have never guessed there was just 5 people working on that film for visual effects. But I think that's super interesting.
Using like Adobe or something. Yeah.
Yeah. It says they use Adobe After Effects, Adobe Premiere Pro, and Resilio Sync. Yeah. Dang. Wild.
I think it won awards for effects too.
Lost track of all the awards that it won.
Yeah, this movie won a ton of awards, though. It's like
All the awards.
all the awards everywhere. But yeah, I agree, though. Go back to what you're saying about Ki Huy Kwan. I'm bummed that he didn't spend his whole career in Hollywood, because like he's so
Yeah.
good. And you're like, man, I don't know how old he is, but I hope it keeps acting for a while longer, because it was awesome watching him in this. And he played a similar character in Loki season 2 that was also awesome. And just, man, he's delightful.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely agree.
I was getting emotional again just watching it yesterday, when it's those scenes when he's talking to the IRS lady in the laundromat, and when also he's telling everyone that they're scared and confused, and like the only thing I do know is we have to be kind. Those are really like human moments, and I think
Yeah.
that's why I get emotional and connect with them so much, is because you could actually see somebody in those kind of situations like actually doing and saying those things.
Yeah. Like he's so good he's such an earnest actor, how he played everything, that when he plays the quirky, funny parts, like it hits because of that. And when he plays the just really emotional, hard hitting moments, those hit really well too, because of just how you believe it.
Yeah. It's a little long, but can I say my second favorite quote in the movie that's also
Yeah,
said
yeah.
by him? When I choose to see the good side of things, I'm not being naive. It is strategic and necessary. It's how I've learned to survive through everything. I know you see yourself as a fighter. I see myself as one too. This is how I fight. The only thing I do know is that we have to be kind. Please be kind, especially when we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's my
So
favorite
good.
quote in the movie. So good. Yeah.
Man, that resonated with me so much. I cried so much during this movie, so many times.
I wasn't alone. Thank God.
Yeah, I rewatched it for the 3rd time today, and I cried again this time watching it. It hits.
It really does. And everyone on this cast is awesome. Michelle, like Jamie Lee Curtis, it just has like great characters. It's so funny, great acting. And I know there's a lot of people, especially on the internet, who are always talking about Hollywood being out of original ideas. And I feel like this
I mean,
film really
yeah,
showcases that's a bunch of BS. Like, we just have to go support movies like this so
yeah,
that others like it get made. There's plenty of original stuff out there. You just need to actually find it and go see it.
yeah,
Because so much
Yeah,
of it is so special.
yeah. Like some of the big franchises out there, I like supporting those too. But you're right. There's a lot of these like individual ones that are just very unique. Like another one that came out 2 years ago that kind of has a similar feel. That's just it's a very unique, like quirky. It's what's Jojo Rabbit. I don't know if you guys saw that
oh
one.
man,
Oh, were you not a
yeah.
fan?
No, it's great. Yeah, I can't think about that movie without feeling like I'm getting
But it was one of those
hit
things where
in
like,
the
if you just,
emotional gland.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That one hits hard.
Oh,
It does. I've only
Well,
watched
like
that one
that's
once.
but that's another one where you're like, if you just read the synopsis of the film or whatever, it's 10-year-old Nazi youth has imaginary best friend named Hitler. And you're like, that sounds awful. That sounds so dumb. But then you watch it and you're like, yeah, there's parts of that are dumb, but it works. And I think that unique ideas out there. And yeah,
just got to go and search and find him.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like for this movie, I saw it in the summer of 2022 simply because I had heard it was good. I had no idea what it was about. I told my wife Sarah that we needed to go see it. And the only theater near me that I could find that was playing it was this really old little theater I had never been to and have not been to since. Like I'm talking like 80s vibes, like
Oh wow.
wallpaper, carpets. Probably hadn't been changed out since the 80s. But it was just Sarah and I and this older couple in the whole theater, and I just started walking out of there, and we were both like, "Wow, that was good."
Yeah, I remember I couldn't stop thinking about it after coming out of that theater. And after about 24 hours of just digesting the movie, I was like, yeah, I think this movie pretty easily cracks like my top 10 movies all times, actually. I love that movie so much.
Yeah, same. So I heard about it several months after it came out. Like my brother had watched it and he told me about it. It's like awesome. And I like, what's it about? I'm not telling you. It's better if you don't know.
I think that's good. That's a good call.
And I was just like, if I ever see it, once it comes to streaming or something, I'll watch it or whatever. Who knows how long that'll be. But then it got re-released in theater in 23, like in April or something like that. And so I like, oh, cool. I'll go watch it. And I was just me and like these two random guys who were friends, like a couple rows out of me, and that's like the rest of the theater was empty. And it was cool though, because you can just like I
Man,
like sitting behind me, seeing their reactions and stuff. It was awesome.
my experience was so different. Y'all both were like in vacant theaters. I was in Seattle at the time in the summer the movie came out. And because of the buzz, everyone wanted to see it. So I actually watched it in like a sold out theater. And that
Cool.
was great. That was awesome.
That's good times at the theater with a crowd.
Man.
Cool.
I'm really glad that both of you, again, independently, reached out to me. Were like, "Hey, we got to cover this film," because it was one that I've been meaning to rewatch anyway.
Oh yeah. And with movies that mean a lot to me, like within my social circle, I can't even say kinda. I peer pressure anyone who has not seen it to watch it to give me an excuse to rewatch the movie as well. So right now I think I'm on 5 and it's funny, I actually have a friend that I'm going to be watching with in the next couple weeks. So going for number 6. It's gonna be great.
Awesome.
I love it. Convert them all.
Yep.
Yeah, I was really glad when we decided to do this for sure because I was like, oh yeah, it's fun to always hang out with you, Chris, and whoever you have on as guests, but it's also like an excuse to rewatch the movie.
Yeah.
100%.
And like at the end of the day, when it comes to art, at least for me, I just want it to make me feel things. And man, I feel like Everything Ever All at Once made me feel so many things on a shallow level with some of the humor. It's stupid, but like it works. And then on the really deep, like response to nihilism. And it's whoa, because I guess on a personal note, I've totally felt nihilistic at times. And it was a subject matter I could relate to. And man, it made me feel so many things. And at the end of the day, that's all I want to get from my entertainment / art
Make me feel something.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah,
real.
yeah.
Art is subjective. If it doesn't make me feel anything, it's not going to land for me.
Yeah, and I agree.
Yeah, and I think that too is why we always want to try and support things that do really shoot their shot.
Yeah,
Comes
this
to
was a hell of a shot.
Yeah, because when it lands, get something really special that again stands out from the crowd. And it sounds as like really positively impacted like all three of us just from even the reflection standpoint walking out of the theater.
Yeah, and it shows you don't need a good dollars to make a good movie. Do you know what its budget was?
I don't
25 million, which is still a lot of money, but in the world of Hollywood, that's nothing.
jump
And
change.
yeah, and this made this beautiful 2.5 hour movie, man.
Yeah, and it was one of those movies that like managed to speak both to critics who are looking for a lot more of those like artistic flair type things, as
Mhm.
well as like the average audience like me. I just want to feel some big emotions and get a laugh some and cool action. And it spoke to just, yeah, a lot of people.
Adam, you speaking on the length of the film, I don't want to be, but I feel like I've become more critical of film length sometime where I'm like, okay, this is a bit long. You could have cut 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about with everything everywhere all at once, there's nothing I would cut.
If I'm being 100%, it's not just this, but I think a big part of that is pacing.
Yeah.
And I feel like this movie was perfectly paced to where it was 2.5 hours long. Me personally, I don't feel it. You know, and I feel like I hate to throw this under the bus, but there are like 2 hour Transformers movies that feel like 4 hours long. You know what I mean?
I know
So
exactly what you mean.
I feel like getting the right pacing and knowing when and where to cut things out more so have the effect on the audience's perception of time because this movie is really long, but like and people I've had watch it, I feel like most audience members don't feel that time because of how well paced and how everything in the movie feels like it needs to be there.
I felt not the opposite, but I felt like it was roughly 2.5 hours, but it felt like it was 3 or 4 hours because of like how much was crammed into
Oh.
it. For me, it felt longer because I just felt so much, but
Yeah.
not in a bad way. It's like how, even though it's already long, I prefer the extended version of The Lord of the Rings because it's an epic. And when you're watching an epic, you want it to be, it has to be long to feel epic.
Yeah.
And even though this technically isn't an epic, it's an epic film. And I love that it felt long.
Yeah.
Yeah, emotionally, it felt like a long movie because go through so much in 2.5 hours. I'm totally with you on that.
And that trick of ending part one and starting to roll the credits,
Yeah.
that also added to the feeling of it being longer.
I think that the main difference is rather when people talk about length, it's more so like when they see a long movie or they're watching a really long movie, they're like, all right, this could have been wrapped up like 20 or 30 minutes ago. You know what I mean? This movie does not feel like that at all.
No, it didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome at all.
There's never a moment where you're sitting there watching it and you're like,
All right, let's wrap this up.
"Man." Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's how I felt about the new Batman movie that came out a couple years ago, where there's a point where it feels like it should have ended, and then they go for another half
Yeah.
hour more. And
I
you're like,
thought it was
"Oh,
really good, but I agree. The third act was
Yes.
a little too long.
yeah."
Just
Or like,
it was like, all right, that's the end of the movie. Sweet. And it just, oh, I guess the
We
movie's not
got
over.
40 minutes left, people.
It's like, okay, I guess we're going to keep going. And it keeps
No,
going.
That's funny. That's your example because I went to a film with my mom and my wife, and I was like, oh, I was loving it. And they turned to me and they're like, is this movie like almost over? So that's a
Yeah.
perfect example.
yeah, I guess I'm in the minority with you guys because it felt too long for me. But yeah, but this was awesome though. I can't recommend this movie enough. It's so good.
Definitely one of the greats, I think, that we've gotten the privilege to go see in the theater.
It's just, I love how original it is because I feel like multiverse is now becoming a trend in movies and TV shows now. And I love how it's taking a concept that's being done a lot now, but still feeling super original, even to how it addresses the multiverse and the mechanisms to like go through it. It hurts my head at how original it was because I just found it super interesting. And that's not even the biggest part of the film, but I just appreciate the ability to have kind of those original mechanisms within the film because it created a lot of the funniest moments of the film too.
It's a good point, Adam. Like it's a story that takes place in multiverses, but it isn't a story about multiverses.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the most important question: what is the best film involving multiverses? This movie or Across the Spider Verse?
I think Across the Spider-Verse was the first one, right?
Second one.
I actually like the first one a little bit better for that, but I think this one's a little bit better for me.
Yeah, I think so too. Even though I really like it.
So they're so different.
They're
Honestly,
so different. No, I just
wow.
want to throw it
I-
out there.
Yeah, another one that like they call it multiverse, but like the Back to the Future is one of the first big ones.
Yeah.
I feel like that trilogy still holds its own. It's pretty cheesy, but like,
Oh, yeah.
I
It's okay. I'm not lactose intolerant, so it works out.
I was gonna say you guys didn't want to throw a new Flash movie in there.
haven't seen it. I've heard it's bad. Probably
Okay,
will.
I was just gonna say I have not seen it.
Oh, you guys are not missing out on much. It's all right.
Marvel's had a couple interesting I like Loki was pretty cool. And then you go
Yeah.
back to the X-Men stuff, Days of Future Past gets a little bit into the different timelines at least, which is similar to multiverse. And I like those movies quite a bit.
Yeah. Actually, since we were talking about DC with the release of the newest Aquaman movie, can we please have a moment of silence for the DCEU, please? Sorry. That was mean.
You're good. You're good.
Oh man.
Yeah. Who is going to see that movie though? On this question.
Oof.
I'm thinking about it just because the first one was not
I-
great, but it was like eye candy. It was so beautiful.
I had fun with it.
And yeah, and I want to watch it, but I don't know. I took Depp's side and the whole Depp versus her thing. So it feels a little bit, I don't know.
It
support her.
seems like she's not in the movie, at least according to the marketing and the trailers. They like don't show her at all, which is probably a good move.
The reason why it's not speaking to me, that trailer at least, is because after watching Avatar: The Way of Water, I think it ruined special effects water movies now for me. Because anytime there's any water in any movie, I'm like, it looks like garbage. And I have conflicted feelings about that. 'Cause I'm like, oh, I really want to try and enjoy this. And then I'm like, but it looks like trash compared to Avatar.
Yeah.
And I can't like mentally get over it.
But there's
Yeah.
been like maybe 5 or 6 movies ever that didn't look like trash compared to Avatar.
It's just the water element, even though it's like above and beyond anything ever. It just stuck with me. And now I'm always mentally comparing it. It's bad.
Oh man. I was just curious since you were talking about it. The budget. Wow. Okay. The budget for Avatar: The Way of Water is literally 10 times Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is $250 million.
Craziness.
Did it also break the record for highest grossing film ever? Because I know his 2 previous movies had.
I see the box office is 2.3 billion, which is
Okay.
pretty good for sure.
Yeah.
I would imagine that falls in the top 10.
Avatar: The Way of Water is number 3.
Oh,
Uh,
so didn't quite make it. But I know
Avatar's still number 1, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Of course.
it's crazy though that the dude has made like 3 movies in the last 20 some years of his life. I can feel like 2 of them were the number 1 highest grossing movie ever when they came out, and then the third one went to number 3. And you're like, the dude
Yeah,
knows
'cause-
how to make like a movie people want to see.
Yeah, because it's Avatar, Avengers Endgame, Avatar: The Way of Water, and Titanic. Those are the top 4.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But one for Avenger, like the MCU machine, like he would have the top 3.
Yeah, no, 100%. It took what, 20 movies to get up to Endgame and then
Yeah.
finally get up there. And I think Avengers Endgame was number 1 for a while, but then Avatar had its re-release in theaters before
Yeah.
Avatar: Way of Water, of course. But yeah, that is wild.
Man, I was actually working on this is a little bit of an aside from Everything Everywhere All at Once, but I was working at a movie theater when Avatar came out, and
okay.
I worked there for 4 years. Out of all the movies that came through, I have never seen a movie so consistently sold out than Avatar for so long. It comes out holiday season. It is selling out in April. And I don't know, it's just so crazy. I've never seen a movie have a wave of enthusiasm last that long. It was crazy.
Yeah. And to be honest, if the visual effects were average, I don't think it would be that good of a movie.
I 100% agree.
I think the storyline
100%.
is pretty generic. You've seen
Yeah.
that thing a bunch of
It
times.
just looks
before.
really pretty.
But it's gorgeous.
I don't know if people remember, Avatar's what started the resurgence of 3D at that time. All of a sudden, all these movies want to do 3D. I feel like Avatar, even though it started the trend, all the other movies that did 3D felt so tacked on. And like when Avatar was made from beginning, they had that in mind, and it's so evident. Man,
I mean, seeing Avatar: The Way of Water in IMAX 3D, it
Oh, I'm jealous.
was incredible. It was an experience. The little flecks of light just around
yeah.
you. Oh my gosh.
Is-
Yeah. I'm always gonna remember it. It was crazy. I haven't watched the movie since. I'm stuck on that. I gotta rewatch it now. Anyway, we went on so many bunny trails.
yeah, sorry.
No, that's not bad. We're having a good time. That's what matters. Anyway, Everything Everywhere All at Once is definitely, again, coming back to what we're talking about a little bit here. Showcases, you don't have to have a huge budget. You don't have to have crazy special effects. You just have to have a really good script and people just acting their asses off, honestly.
Yeah.
And you get something super special that it sounds like for all of us is definitely one of our favorite movies the last 2 years.
All
All
time.
time. There you go.
All time. Right?
If you haven't seen it, go see it.
For real, if you haven't watched it, watch it right now. Stop what you're doing. Watch it. It's great. You'll probably cry, but it'll be well earned.
Yes. Did you cry, John?
Yeah, I cried a few different times.
Okay,
I
cool.
cried.
So we all cried.
It worked. Like, I don't mind. Like, it added to it for me.
Perfect. Thank you both so much again for joining me and for both being very passionate about this film. It's a really good discussion. I had a lot of fun with you both tonight.
Yeah, it
Same.
was real
Thanks
fun.
again for having us on, Chris.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Anytime. Let's do it again. And that'll wrap up this episode of the Cinema Club. If you have not already, feel free to join the Cinema Club Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/cinema-club-TCC. And you can always listen to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and anywhere else you hear podcasts. Please consider also leaving us a review on iTunes. It really does help us reach more listeners. And also feel free to invite more new members to the Cinema Club podcast if you are enjoying the content that we're putting out. Also wanted to share that you can email Nick or myself at the Cinema Club TCC@gmail.com if you would like to be on the podcast in the future. And again, finally, we are completely supported by you, our listeners. So if you are wanting to support the show financially, please consider clicking the support button on our website. You can check that out again at podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/cinema club. Thank you again so much for joining us, and we will see you on the next one.